No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 99. And do click to subscribe, please. We are a brand new independent news source. That's the way you can help support what I'm doing. If you turn on the notification bell as well, then you will know every time one of our live shows starts, one of our uncancelled interviews starts, or our special royal episodes. But breaking right now, Clarkson's farmers have stormed Westminster in the major rural revolt against this lying, scheming and treacherous Labour government led by Slippery Starmer. And Jeremy Clarkson, recovering from a heart attack, fired serious shots at the MSM, including his former employers, the British Bashing Corporation, for spreading shocking fake news about the inheritance tax raid.
We continue this fight with them because you are part of the farming community now.
No,
and they look to you.
I'm just a journalist who has a farm and is able to report through the vehicle of Clarkson's farm what it's like to be a farmer.
And just how hard is that?
You've no idea. Have you seen Clarkson's farm?
I have,
It's
yes.
that hard.
And I spoke to a gentleman who lost his father, and he thinks it's because of this kind of pressure. And you've spoken
I wouldn't be
about
surprised.
the
The suicide rate in farming is off the charts. Because there's just very little support. And do forgive me, I've got to go.
Just a final message for the Prime Minister, if he's watching today from Rio.
He isn't. He's in Rio.
If he's watching...
He's watching. He's going la 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 la. Sit without a noise. La 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 with his Playmobil hair. Don't like him.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you.
Now that went a lot better than the crooked BBC interview with Victoria Derbyshire of Newsnight. So I'm going to show that to you in my digest next. Also, Nigel Farage predicted farmers could become militant after today's protest.
Don't mean we could become like the French.
Yeah, it could be. Well, that's what it needs. They've got the answer.
Should we be like the French?
Yes, it'll sort it out, won't it? Too bloody soft.
They're turning militant, this lot.
And perhaps the best moment of the day, a farmer owning James O'Brien on LBC.
As a farmer?
Absolutely. No, I've explained several. Do you listen to this programme?
So when you... No, I don't.
Well, how can you have such strong...
I think you're an idiot.
How can you have such strong views about me then?
Because the few times I have listened to you, I heard how you speak to people. You talk over them and cut them off, like you've done to me.
Down with that sort of thing, Charlie?
You are down with that, I know. That's what you
I
love.
mean down with talking over people and shouting at them.
Oh, I'll shout at you. I'll give you everything that you try and give me.
Yes, you go. Love that. So we've got all of that coming up in the digest. Then my superstar panel today, which includes the protesting farmer, Tess Wheldon, alongside former UKIP Deputy Leader Rebecca Jane, give their verdict. Also on the show today, Allison Pearson owns the newsagent hosts Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall as the so-called journalists shamefully refuse to stand up for free speech. And the pressure builds on lying Chancellor Rachel Thieves as even lefties call for her to be sacked. There is shocking new information about her fake CV. I'm going to bring it to you later in the show. Then in the uncancelled after show, Angela Levin is back on the growing separation between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle as she claims to be joyful during another bizarre red carpet appearance while he goes all American during a solo trip to Canada. Big news. As you probably know by now, the uncancelled after show broadcast exclusively daily and on demand via the free speech platform Substack. I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to me there. If you go for the monthly paid membership, which is available from just £5 a month, so you get access to the after show Monday to Friday, as well as my exclusive reporting, my columns, the opportunity to chat to me, all of that sort of good stuff. Most importantly, it is a safe space, free of censorship. Your support gives you all that extra content, but also allows me to continue making this independent daily news show. Let's go. The revolt is on. In just 137 days, this socialist sham of a government under Slippery Starmer, who lied and cheated his way to power, is facing more popular unrest than at any time in modern British history. Today began And as you can see, the rural revolt began today. Trust me, this is just the beginning of the unrest Labour is going to feel for looking the British public in the eye, telling us a series of lies, and then spitting at us in the face. There are at least 60,000 folk there today. But of course, Sly News tried to say there were just a few thousand max. And a resistance movement requires heroes. And one emerged today in the form of Jeremy Clarkson. Fresh off a heart attack, the star of Amazon's international sensation Clarkson's Farm, a man who is now totally uncancelable, and he wasn't taking any of the usual bullshit dished out by his former employees at the British Bashing Corporation. Watch this exchange with Newsnight host Victoria Derbyshire.
Well, no, the other reason was to raise money for public services. Well, have you seen...
Are you listening to this?
Have you tried to get a GP appointment lately?
Yes,
Right.
I just recently had a heart attack.
Okay, so you know it's tough.
Yes.
So where should they get the money from if it's not from farmers?
From farmers.
With
You hear that, everyone?
with
BBC
assets.
thinks you should be paying for everything.
Mr. Clarkson,
Okay,
you
do
know
you
it's
know
not the
how many
BBC's
people
view.
pay inheritance tax in this country?
It's 4% of estates.
What?
4% of estates.
4% pay inheritance tax. 96% of the population of the UK does not pay inheritance tax.
Sure.
After this becomes law, 96% of farmers will.
Where have you got that figure from?
Who here, can I just ask, who here is going to be unaffected by these changes? No one.
Right. Where have you got
I
the
know.
96% figure
Well,
from?
you've got 96%. Well, the same place that Rachel Reeves does, from the middle of her head.
Right.
From the Sixth Form Debating Society that she was no doubt a member of,
Okay.
which
So-
formed her opinions and yours.
I am a...
Ah, yes, brilliant. That's Trumpian. That is what we need from our leaders. They shouldn't march to the beat of the drum of the MSM. And that approach is working for Clarkson. Just look at this new polling of net favourability ratings. So this is amongst UK adults. Okay, you've got Martin Lewis at the top there, plus 53. But then Clarkson, plus 17, ahead of every major politician in the country. Starmer down there at the bottom, negative 22. Clarkson then took his BBC bashing message to the stage.
Honestly, I don't know where to start. I know you've heard a lot about it today, and I'm not going to dwell on that. I will just say this. Rachel Reeves has told us, what is it, 72%? 72% of farmers are going to be unaffected by this. I've just been interviewed by Victoria Derbyshire for Newsnight. Let's see if we can educate her here, if she's still around, Victoria. How many people here, if you'd raise your hands, are from a family farm? I want to see, right. I hope you can see that. I hope we've got our cameras from the show up high to see. That's a lot of hands. Now, keep them up, and I want you to lower them if you think, and you've had time to work this out, you think you're going to be unaffected by the changes to APR and BPR. Put your hands down if you're going to be unaffected. Thank you. My case rests. I want Newsnight to see that. She was trotting out. Nobody's affected. Rachel Reeves says so. Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government? I've got to get the brakes on. The trouble is I'm off my tits on codeine and paracetamol up here. I don't know what I'm saying. But I do want to finish, if I may, with a message to the government. I do. Not a shouty one, it's this. For the sake of everybody here, and for all the farmers who are stuck at home today, paralysed by a fog of despair over what's been foisted upon them, I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake. That's the big thing to do, admit it, and back down. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Well, incredibly powerful stuff there from Clarkson. It was actually Sly News, though, who managed to extract an honest response from him about how he really feels about two-tier care.
Newsnight to see that. She was trotting out. Nobody's affected. Rachel Reeves says so. Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government?
But the question really is, do we have the people power to properly take on Starmer's government? Clarkson has his doubts.
Say, we made a mistake here, and then back down.
What happens if they don't?
I don't know. British aren't very good at protesting.
Keep moving.
But Reform UK leader Nigel Farage clearly has higher hopes.
How angry do you feel?
Very angry. Very angry. For all my friends that are farming, I'm just a farm worker, but for all the owners that I know, yeah, really. And the most thing I'm angry about is the mental health and people dying because of this budget and committing suicide. Someone needs to be held accountable for that.
Well, thing is, can we get it reversed? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a bloody grey area with it all, isn't it? But I think today will do a bit of good on it all. And I think people ought to be a bit careful, because if it don't get the answer today, I think farmers will go the next step further. And well, you've seen how many people are here today. I think there'll be trailers dropped on motorways and tractors everywhere. I think it could be a serious problem.
You don't mean we could become like the French?
Yeah, it could be. Well, that's what it needs. They've got the answer.
Should we be like the French?
Yes, it'll sort it out, won't it?
Too bloody soft.
They're Tony Militant, this lot.
I actually had hope today too, because this was an event that reunited the right. And that hasn't happened for a very long time, because it reunited the right from Clarkson to Nigel Farage to Katie Hopkins.
60,000 of them are here outside Keir Starmer, and it's time this government stopped talking and started listening to ordinary British people. If one of these politicians had to work a single day in the life of these brilliant farmers, they would learn what actual hard work is all about, and I wish them all the very best.
And from Katie Hopkins to one of my heroes, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber, who gave this fascinating interview to Bev Turner.
So what is the fear, Andrew? What would your fear be should this tax impact these farms in the longer term?
In the longer term, what will happen is they'll all be bought by probably foreigners, outsiders, people who are not buying it for the love of the countryside. They're buying it purely as a long-term investment. Many, many, many people hovering around at the moment, rubbing their hands in glee.
From Lord Webber to the new Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch.
Reverse the family farms tax. I have here with me Victoria Atkins and Robbie Moore. They are the shadow ministers who are watching what the Department for the Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs is doing. They're watching the Treasury. We are the team that are working for you. We know the burden that farmers are carrying. A lot of people think that farming is just a business. It is not just a business. It is a way of life. It is about family. It is about the land. It is about the environment. It is about our food. We cannot survive without you.
So there was one odd man out today, Keir Starmer, the farmer harmer.
20,000 farmers are reportedly descending on London in protest of your budget decisions. You say you're supporting farmers. Why don't they believe you?
We are supporting farmers, and I want to support farmers.
He looks terrified. He should feel terrified. But isn't it beautiful seeing the elite get a metaphorical beating, especially when it's that smug, sanctimonious and revolting character James O'Brien on the Labour Broadcasting Company. And huge credit Huge credit. I actually want to know who this guy is. If he's watching, if this young farmer Charlie is watching, I would love to speak to you, because finally someone took James O'Brien on in his own territory and won.
You sell some stuff.
Like what, James?
Well, some of you,
Who's going to buy it?
Some of your land.
Who's going to buy it? Who's going to buy it?
I don't know. Lots of people are trying to buy land. We spoke to.
No, that's the funny
What
thing.
do you want a name?
Another farmer's not going to buy
John.
it, are they?
John's going to buy it.
Farmer.
John is going to buy it.
John's going to build solar panels on it.
John. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but he's going to. But you asked me who was going to buy it, which you don't recognise. You're shouting at me again.
Panels. We've had the offers for wind farms.
Well, there you go. Then what are you complaining about?
Because we don't want to concrete over the land. I know you're a townie. I know you're happy living in your liberal elite world of London. But for us, the countryside is the countryside. It's where our food comes from, James.
So you've been offered.
You seem to have forgotten that.
You
seem to have forgotten that, haven't you, James?
Charlie, you
can't
don't.
accept it.
Okay, mate. I'm going to have a
I'm
little.
not your mate. I hate you. I think you're an idiot.
Okay.
I think you're a lefty, liberal, woke idiot.
Okay, Charlie.
Let's tarmac the AOMBs.
Charlie.
Let's tarmac them. Yeah, get some solar farms on there. Yeah, why not, James?
I think
hey, James, you like immigrants?
Charlie.
You probably want to see some homes there as well, don't you?
Well, down with homes.
When was the last time you went to a farm?
I grew up on a working farm. I probably should have mentioned that sooner. I grew up just outside Kidderminster in Worcestershire. The farmers are all around Chaddesley, Corbett, and that area.
So what? Your dad was a farmer?
Absolutely. No, I've explained several. Do you listen to this programme?
So when you? No, I don't.
Well, how can you have such strong?
I think you're an idiot.
How can you have such strong views about me then?
Because the few times I have listened to you, I heard how you speak to people. You talk over them and cut them off, like you've done to me.
Down with that sort of thing, Charlie?
You are down with that, I know. That's what you love.
I mean down with talking over people and shouting at them.
Oh, I'll shout at you. I'll give you everything that you try and give me.
I've tried to give you a fair hearing.
You haven't. You haven't at all.
Okay.
I pointed the facts to you and you won't accept it.
Okay.
You know nothing, James. Stick in your London liberal lefty wokeism. You know nothing about farming.
Yes, Charlie. Yes, Charlie. And do you know what happens when James O'Brien knows that he's lost? I was watching very closely, and it wasn't fully in the clip, but he goes to his producers and he says, turn them down, turn them down. Charlie won. And that was just one part of the rural revolt which begun today. But trust me, it won't be long until most of the population feels the same way about this government. And that's when the real fun begins. Now, my superstar panel. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined today by one of my favourites, the UKIP deputy leader, formerly now a Conservative commentator, amongst other things, Rebecca Jane. And joining us for the first time, and a very appropriate day to have her, the farmer, Tess Wheldon, who was at the protest today. So, Tess, quite an incredible feat for the right to be united in such a strong and positive fashion. This was the beginning of something today, wasn't it, Tess?
I certainly think so. And I think that it really says something that farmers have come out and protested, despite the NFU saying don't come out, despite there being a sign-up link that it came out is going to be sent to DEFRA so that DEFRA can go and target all the farmers who signed up to come out and protest. Despite that, farmers have been pushed so much, not just by the Labour government, but by the Tory government beforehand, that we have no option but to take to the streets and protest. And farmers don't want to protest. We are used to being up in all manner of conditions, in the middle of the night, saving a lamb that's fallen into a stream, helping a cow that's calving for the first time, wading through mud. We're happy to be in snow, in sleet, in hail, in freezing conditions, in the boiling heat. We don't care. We're there, we're farming, we're used to pain. What we're not used to is not being permitted to farm anymore, and that's what's happened.
Indeed, indeed. Rebecca Jane, quite incredible to see that group of people come together, right?
Yeah, I think it was very powerful. I think it was very moving. I think that obviously, as Tess just said, this isn't just about the Labour government. This has been going on for a very long time. Farmers have been penalised in numerous amounts of ways. And what people are forgetting here is that they are the backbone of part of not just our food production, but of our society. I mean, who is actually genuinely, no offence, but who is actually going through education, university and going, I want to be a farmer? Not very many people. So all we have to rely on for our food source and for people to do this incredibly difficult and taxing job are the people that are actually coming through the families and are being, obviously brought up that way. They're the people that are doing it. And now they're the people that are going to be penalised the most by this and probably turned into other directions and other careers. And that is not what we want, because we don't have a whole flurry of people who want to be farmers today.
No, of course. But Tess, I very much believe this is more sinister. Labour's attack on farmers is deliberate because they want small farmers out of business, given that they have control in lots of ways over the big corporate farmers. And we know what the push is. We know what the globalists want. And I'm not joking when I say they either want us on vegan diets or eating bugs. That is the future. So there is good reason, if you're following the globalist agenda, to stamp out small farmers. And so that's why actually there's more for us to fight for. If you want to eat meat, if you want to be in control of your own diet, that's why we also have to support our small farmers.
Absolutely. And I can tell you what I've been hearing from the British people is that we will not eat the bugs. We will not.
No.
We want to have...
No way.
Yeah, we want to have decent British food. And the food standards in the UK are far higher than they are in the EU, in New Zealand, in Australia, in America. We have some of the highest food standards for the production of food ever. I mean, I speak to other farmers. I know that year round, we keep our farms immaculate. We make sure that we don't have any sort of pests. We make sure that all of our fields are not only clean and dry and our animals have places to go and shelter, but also that, lots of us take our farms organic because we get far higher prices for the meat. There are a whole load of incentives in the market to actually produce food to a very high standard. Not only that, if the globalists really wanted lower emissions, if they really believed in anthropogenic climate change, which I certainly think there's a whole load of debate, the planet's been going for a really long time. And I think that thinking that humans are going to destroy it in 50 years is just arrogance, frankly, from the liberal elite. But if you do believe that, if you do want lower emissions, surely you want food produced in the UK, because food produced in the UK doesn't have to fly over on airplanes or come over on trucks. And therefore it produces lower emissions. On that point, people say, oh, cows produce methane, sheep are destroying natural diversity, biodiversity. That's absolute crap. They've done studies and cows produce no more methane than grass produces on its own when it decomposes and then grows again as the natural cycle of grass. Therefore, what they want is not to just get rid of cows and then have crops grown. The only way that you would lower emissions further compared to having cows is if you concrete over the land and you put something like houses or solar panels on. And this is what I believe Labour is doing.
Which is what they want. I mean, look, it's what they want. As Jeremy Clarkson said, ethnic cleansing of the countryside.
Yeah. Well, literal ethnic cleansing. They want to have 20% of farms sold off every single generation. What they're going to do is have developers buy it up. They've already, made sure that you can pretty much build on greenbelt land if you try hard enough. And then they're going to put a whole load of houses on, put some immigrants in the houses, and then give them public sector jobs, grow the state, bloat the state, so they have an opportunity to tax people more and push down their enemies more, and then create a client state, because those people with those public sector jobs will have to vote Labour back in to keep their jobs. We have to be very scared of Labour, because Labour is not just a political party, they are a movement.
100%.
And therefore they are very, very dangerous.
100%. And they are a movement backed up by the globalists that very much are all signed up to the World Economic Forum agenda. This is dangerous. And so that's why what you have today is the BBC just trying to dismiss this as, oh, you're just talking about a few rich farmers. That's what they want you to think. It is so much bigger than that. But Rebecca, can we just please take a beautiful moment to enjoy James O'Brien being completely owned by that young farmer, Charlie? I just loved it.
That was embarrassing. embarrassing, weren't it? For him, of course, it wasn't for Charlie. Thank goodness that somebody actually said it exactly like it is, and thank goodness that somebody put him in his place. It was quite unfortunate that you literally saw it on his face, that he lost the argument. He didn't know what to do. It was just a complete embarrassment. But I'm so pleased that people are actually having a voice about this, because it is so easy to be dismissed, especially in, sort of other media organisations. And I thought that it was a marvellous piece of work, let's say that.
It was beautiful. And Tess, Jeremy Clarkson, okay, he's just had a heart attack. He has a very comfortable life on his farm. He's making the Amazon show. He's recovered from his cancellation attempt by Meghan Markle. But anyway, you could see him becoming Britain's Trump.
I certainly think that he speaks very passionately. Certainly, like Trump, he's had a career before in entertainment. I think, unlike Trump, he doesn't want to be in politics. You can see that he's very happy on his farm. He's doing a great service for farmers. While he's not a commercial farmer, he's admitted that. He's admitted that he's in the minority. And therefore, all the attacks saying, oh, Jeremy Clarkson, look at him swanning around on his farm, look at his easy life. Farmers are all like that. They're all greedy and lazy, which is what one Labour politician said on Twitter recently, I think today at some point. Despite those attacks, he's actually in the minority, but he is helping to show what farmers go through. But I think he's quite happy. He's doing what he's doing. And my heart would break for him if he felt that he needed to get into politics. I think that he would if he felt that there was nobody else doing it. But at the moment, him going forward, speaking about issues that he cares about, making that Amazon show, I think he deserves a rest, certainly after having that heart attack. And I've certainly been praying that he gets well soon.
Me too. Oh my goodness. And look, whether he's in politics or not, what we know now is that there is lots of ways, especially because we've got this independent media ecosystem growing, there's lots of ways to challenge the narrative. And I think whether he does run for parliament or not, which I agree is unlikely at the moment, there's lots of ways that he will be now helping change the agenda. Breaking right now, the fake news agents John Sopel, Emily Maitlis and Lewis Goodall have just declared they don't believe in free speech. In an astonishing row with Star Daily Telegraph columnist Allison Pearson, who you'll know remains under investigation by the Essex police for a tweet. So let me take you through this story because it really is astonishing. So Hugh Edwards defender John Sopel wrote on X, a platform that recently he claimed he was quitting, a word on Alison Pearson free speech row and what she describes as a Kafkaesque threat to it. Today on the newsagents, we asked her to appear. She said no. And if you get any aspect of the story wrong, my lawyers will be watching. You gotta love a free speech warrior. Alison responded, yes, John, I refuse to appear because your bias against anyone on the right is clear. Also, you defended your friend, the child pornography viewer Hugh Edwards, and attacked those who called him out. Yet as a journalist, you think the police visiting a fellow hack is okay. So a reminder, this is what Sopel had to say about the BBC sex abuse video sharer Hugh Edwards.
I think it would be a crying shame if this is the last we see of Hugh Edwards on television, when the allegations have turned out to be not that much. And I think all his friends will just be wishing him well at this stage, because Hugh commands huge respect in this industry.
So this guy is an establishment stooge, even when it comes to defending paedophiles. That's how much he will back the establishment and the mainstream media. But actually, it was during this Alison Pearson episode of The Newsagents where I think things got really dark. I want you to watch.
This will become a very ingrained narrative about A, the police force, even if it was the wrong police force that she called out, B, the way that Britain is perceived as being a place that, is a police state and that tries to curtail free speech. And I think this then becomes the narrative. It's a police state, or Boris Johnson's word, redolent of some of the worst actions of the Soviet Union.
1.7 million people in the Gulag probably have something to say about that, by the way.
Yeah, there is such a thing as Godwin's law, isn't it? You can't get very far in an argument without mentioning Hitler. And it seems to me that people are trying to make sure that this is one of those moments that you can't get very far into investigating any kind of story without saying, oh, we're now living in a police state. We're now living in a sort of fascist or communist or Soviet state where nobody's allowed to do anything. Next thing I know, they'll be telling me I can't put up my Christmas tree.
The next thing they'll be saying is there are asylum seekers in a hotel in let's burn the fucking place down, which is what someone did and got into trouble for. You think, well, you know what? If you're inciting acts of murder...
Was that just a tweet? It was just a tweet.
It was just a little comment on Facebook or wherever it was. But sorry, that's the law of the land.
But that's what I think is so dishonest about so much of this debate, and why I describe the free speech absolutism as kind of a canard. Because basically, the truth is, all these people can scream free speech as much as they like. I think you're right, Emily. I think there's a political reason for that, and the political reason is that many of these people are seeking to, and we've seen it with Pearson, in my view, you know, many of these people are seeking to create a persecution complex.
Let me just arch an eyebrow slightly to say that the champion of free speech in all of this is sort of threatening us with lawyers if we get any of this.
All three of you are despicable human beings. You are not journalists. You are not journalists. You are now part of the apparatus of state, because that is the only explanation for you siding with the police, siding with the establishment, siding with Keir Starmer, who thinks it's appropriate for two officers to turn up at the house of a newspaper columnist and launch a criminal investigation for a tweet, for a post on X. That is authoritarian. It's the definition of a police state. And what's so disgusting is that just because your mates in the media are all safe, because you all think the same thing, you all go with the mainstream narrative, you all spread the lies about COVID, so you're safe. And the thing is, I am someone that doesn't believe folk on the left should be locked up for what they have to say. I am a free speech absolutist. There's absolutely no hypocrisy coming from me. But as you pointed out, Mr. Sopel, under free speech, people are also allowed to sue. So Allison Pearson is completely within her rights to threaten to sue you. Charlotte Gill wrote on X about this exchange, there should be an inquiry as to how they were ever BBC senior journos. Imagine the right-wing equivalent. And I completely agree with that. I think the emergence of these three from the BBC as hard left propagandists proves what I've been saying about the British Bashing Corporation for years. It is a crooked and corrupt organisation that should be defunded. And there's been so much response from good, honest people who know that we are now entering into a police state. Like Kelly J. Keane, the women's rights activist, who posted, since 2018, I've been interviewed under caution 3 times for words I've spoken or written. I've been arrested once and had the police at my door for being untoward about paedophiles. Not sure about you kids, but I'd say that's a pretty terrifying state for our country to be in. I agree. What does my superstar panel think? Tess Wheldon, Rebecca Jane in the house. Rebecca, I find it astonishing that Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall are so partisan, are so hate-filled about anyone on the right, that even in these circumstances, they are not on the side of the journalists. They are not on the side of free speech. They are on the side of the authoritarians.
Sorry, was that at me, Dan?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I think... so I actually listened to this about an hour ago. I listened to the full thing. I don't have a lot of time for any of them, and I think that the comments about Hugh Edwards suggest, well, I think probably there should be police knocking at his door for that rather than what Allison had. I don't agree that Allison deserved a visit from the police in the slightest. However, I am a little bit different. Of course, I am a passionate believer in free speech. However, I do think that we do have to have some boundaries. And I say that as somebody that's been on the end of a lot of online trolls and a lot of abuse, and they are incredibly damaging. And I think when you become defamatory, there should be repercussions. However, this was not the line to be taken here. We went completely across it. And the only reason why the Met Police got involved is because it was about them and they were protecting themselves. And I think that what you've said about the hosts of the show is absolutely correct. If it was about something that they were unhappy with or they believed in, this would be a very different conversation. It suits their agenda and it suits their narrative. And they're not actually looking at this from an independent viewpoint, which is apparently what they're supposed to do as journalists. This was uncalled for. This was unnecessary. But we do need boundaries.
Tess Wheldon, what do you make of it all?
I think that this is another proof point that anyone who is a journalist or an independent broadcaster or frankly has anything to say that the Liberals could take issue with and the mainstream media could take issue with needs to join the Free Speech Union. Because that way they will have, I'm a member, and they have lawyers and expertise to protect you. But frankly, the other thing is that this is just becoming Orwellian at this point. You should be able to say, within reason, and I mean within reason as in not, we're going to go and kill people at this time, in this place, bring a machete, come with us. And that kind of thing, very obviously inciting violence, getting people to come along and commit murder. Short of that, you should be able to say what you want. Words don't hurt people. When have we got away from men going to war and we now come to men knocking on people's doors saying, you said words and they hurt someone? I mean, another journalist, Julie Bindel, tweeted on Saturday that she had police come around to her house in 2019 over a tweet that she'd done. Some gender dysphoric woman in Holland, or they call them a transgender man, gender dysphoric woman, I'm sorry, had complained to the police in the UK about a tweet that she made on X that was apparently transphobic. She also wasn't told what tweet it was, and she also wasn't told what specific offence it fell under. Not only are we having people knock on our doors because we say things that hurt people's feelings and that aren't that don't agree with what the mainstream media want to put across as norms, which never used to be norms, but we're also allowed to have people from anywhere in the world come and say, sorry, this hurt me. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And look, the thing is, of course, if someone is breaking the law, then that can be dealt with. But there is a mission creep here, which is only ever targeted to one side of politics, because I have presented countless examples over the past week of pro-Hamas supporters literally calling for the death of Jews, literally, in front of police officers who ignore it. So do not tell me there are not double standards here. And we had the Essex Crime Commissioner, Roger Hurst, who is meant to keep the police honest, coming out, surprise, surprise, talking to LBC, talking to Lewis Goodall. So this is all the same people. They all speak the same language. They all speak to each other. And you should listen to what he had to say about Allison Pearson. Personally, I think Allison Pearson should sue this man because he is making it very, very clear that he has already made a judgment that she has committed a crime. Believe me, Allison Pearson did not commit a crime. Watch this.
We can't go around ignoring crimes just because it's politically sensitive. And we perhaps need to just think about how our Black and Asian communities are hearing this debate. After all, the 1986 Public Order Act defines this as a crime. And the maximum sentence, the normal measure of crime severity is on the maximum sentence. The maximum sentence is 7 years. That puts it up there well ahead of shoplifting and actually ahead of most car theft.
That is
as well.
Inciting racial hatred, to be specific.
Exactly that, yes. We will have no two-tier policing in Essex. Everyone's equal under the law. And if there is a complaint made, then the police are duty-bound to investigate it.
I mean, Rebecca Jane, he's made a judgment. I mean, the irony here is that you have the left, you have Keir Starmer saying, we can't even talk about Axel Rudakabana. We can't even talk about the fact that he was producing, that he's been charged of producing ricin as a bioweapon, that he's been charged with terrorism offences because he had an Al-Qaeda manual. But when it comes to Allison Pearson, She's a criminal, according to that bloke who is the Essex Crime Commissioner. It's a joke.
Yeah, I'm really infuriated, actually, especially with what he says, because we're picking and choosing. What he's saying is just not true. And in my opinion, what he has just said is complete gaslighting the public. Don't pretend like we deal with everybody equally. You're not doing. And actually, do you know what? I can go back to an incident. I forget how many years it was now, but it was just before COVID, I think. I was in Manchester. I was driving in my car, and some gentleman behind me had an issue with how I was driving my car. I must have been slamming on the brakes too much or whatever. They pulled up at the side of me. Two gentlemen who wound down their window, and I didn't know what they were trying to say to me. And they said a racially offensive word, and then they threw a brick at my window, right? And the first thing that I actually did was, and I had footage of it as well, I drove straight to the police station. I gave them the footage. I told them what had happened and what happened there. They went round, they gave him a few words of warning, and that was the end of it. And now you want to send somebody round to somebody's house because of a tweet. This is nonsense. If you want to have certain boundaries and certain standards, they have to be enforced for all. And you can't pick and choose which political views that you like, because that's exactly what he has done in this situation. And our criminal justice system is ruined as it is. We're releasing criminals, and now we're wasting precious time. We don't like to burglaries because of this. Ridiculous. But he needs to resign.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. It really is appalling. Also appalling is the fact that the British Bashing Corporation, just like the news agents, have absolutely no sympathy for the Allison Pearson situation. They come at this looking at her as a bad person. I want to show you this video of Richard Tice, the Reform UK deputy leader, on Newsnight. But listen out specifically to the highly sceptical reaction from the BBC host.
Allison Pearson is a well-known journalist, and as Andy was saying, the police knock on the door. They say, you're being investigated for a tweet. We're not going to tell you what tweet it is. They say it's a non-crime hate incident. They've now changed their mind on that. They wouldn't confirm who the accuser was, who they said, oh no, it's not an accuser, it's a victim. They wouldn't say what happens next, how long this investigation goes on. And so Allison Pearson is left, frankly, terrified and scared. And this is happening to at least
You tell me Allison Pearson is scared.
I've spoken to her on the way here, and this is genuinely scary, because this could appear as a criminal record. The police this week in Essex, in a sense, they've panicked. And they've said, no, it's not a non-crime hate incident. It's a criminal investigation. And in their state of panic, they've now launched a gold probe, which they normally reserve for incidents of, for example, murder, terrorism.
I mean, Tess Wheldon, Allison Pearson, terrified? Of course she's not terrified. How dare they? Allison Pearson is, I believe, Britain's best newspaper columnist. She's a family woman. She's a good, honest woman. Not only does she not want to be thrust into the middle of a story like this, she doesn't want to be facing up to 7 years in prison. Of course she's terrified.
Yeah, of course. And actually, if you have a look, they've now managed to identify which tweet it was, or they think they have. She did a tweet. There were two people holding a flag of a Pakistani party with some police who were posing with them. And she put the tweet out and saying, how dare they, invited to pose with peaceful British friends of Israel on Saturday, police refused. Look at this lot smiling with the Jew haters. I mean, a little bit inflammatory, certainly not rising to the level of racial hatred. And then one of her followers pointed out that she'd mistaken the Pakistani flag for a Hamas flag. Very easily done, same colour scheme. And she then took the tweet down because she recognised that she was wrong. Are we not allowed to make mistakes in this country anymore?
Well, of course.
Are we not allowed to say something without having done loads and loads and loads of research? And we're going to be thrown in prison for 7 years for it. It's absurd.
It is absurd. And also, it is worth pointing out, though, that Imran Khan's party is full of a whole load of provable anti-Semitism. So while it may not have been the exact point that Allison was trying to make, in fact, on a truth ground, she could very much argue that there are Jew haters within that political movement. So I think there are so many grey areas here, but the most shocking thing to me is that no journalist, no matter where you work, should want to live in a free country where the police turn up at the homes of your colleagues because of something they have posted on X. But we live in such a divided society now, and I just repeat, do not trust people like the newsagents. They are not on your side. They are not journalists. They are activists. And the fact that they do not have Allison Pearson's back in this situation proves that they are activists. Because if this happened to a left-wing journalist, believe me, I would be on their side. Just like I was on the side of Novara Media when they were booted off YouTube. But the left never put their principles ahead of their politics, and this is more proof of that. But look, stand by, Tess Wheldon and Rebecca Jane, because we're back in just 1 minute. You don't want to go anywhere. I have a bombshell development, a genuine bombshell in the case of the lying, cheating Chancellor, Rachel Thieves. But first, with the holidays creeping up faster than your aunt's fruitcake recipe, I've got something way better to share with you. If you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner Award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, it's a bit like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. So let's dive into the goods. The Chairman Pro is armed with not one, but two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. Think of them as your grooming superheroes. The skin-safe 4-blade foil for when you want that baby's bottom smooth, and the skin-safe stubble trimmer for when you want to keep some stubble, but clean it up a bit. It keeps you looking sharp while minimizing razor burn and irritation, because nobody wants to show up to the holiday party looking like they lost a fight with a Christmas tree. But wait, there's more. The Chairman Pro has Flex Adjust technology, which is basically like the holiday miracle of shaving. It's like Santa's elves made it just for you. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face and is gentle on the neck area, as if they had the gift of foresight. So go ahead, kiss that awkward jawline patch goodbye. No more pretending it doesn't exist while you hope nobody notices under the mistletoe. And if you want even more precision, on the right side of the bracket, there's a precision lock. When you lock it, the blade head sits firm so you can achieve a more precise shave. And here's something that's going to make your grooming routine even easier. The Chairman Pro is waterproof, so you can use it in the shower. And the waterproof feature doesn't just make shaving easier, it also simplifies the cleanup too. Just a quick rinse under the sink and you're all set. The Chairman Pro isn't just for daily shaves either. It's powerful enough to tackle up to 5-day growth, making it perfect whether you're shaving every day or just tidying up after a few days. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, you'll have plenty of juice to get from Santa's beard to smooth as a snow angel. See what I did there? It even has a travel lock to make sure it doesn't accidentally turn on in your bag, and an LED spotlight to help you see every detail, ensuring nothing gets missed. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. It has everything you need to keep your face looking and feeling the best, all in one box. So head on over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million worldwide who trust Manscaped. All you need to do for 20% off your entire order and free shipping is use the code OUTSPOKEN. So enter the word OUTSPOKEN at checkout. So that's www.manscaped.com using the coupon code OUTSPOKEN. But now, back to the show. Breaking right now, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has been exposed as a treacherous liar who faked her CV as much as she faked Labour's pre-election pledges on farmers and winter fuel allowance. An extraordinary news story from the Guido Fawkes website, which has shamed the Labour stooges in the MSM on this story. So let me take you through it. They have reported in the last few hours that Guido can now exclusively reveal that Reeves claims she was an economist on legal filings made during her time at HBOS. Reeves became a director of a Leeds-based charity on the 15th of May 2008 in the middle of her time in an HBOS retail banking complaints team. Her friend says he remembers her working in operations and Leeds at the time. On her appointment form, which is publicly available, a formal submission to a government body, she states her current occupation to be economist. She appears to have filled in the form in her own handwriting. It also bears her signature in ink. And let me show you the receipts. There they are. Reeves, by her own account, was not working as an economist at the time, as clarified by the edits to her LinkedIn page that we covered earlier in the week. Treasury sources added on Friday that Reeves worked in retail banking, covering various areas, drawing on her background as an economist. Hacks were referred to this line by Downing Street yesterday. So, not an economist. This document was officially submitted to Companies House. As Chancellor, this revelation leaves Reeves in an extremely difficult position. So that's according to Guido Fawkes, who is leading the charge on this when the mainstream media are trying to ignore this story. I think, though, what they said is the understatement of the year. Reeves must go. This is a woman who promised integrity in public life. She fell at the first hurdle. As Reform UK Deputy Leader Richard Tice has said, the Chancellor appears deliberately to have misled the British people about her career and experience. Where is her honesty and integrity? And it gets worse for Rachel Reeves at this hour. Michael Crick, this guy is a hard left journalist. Michael Crick now has just called on Rachel Reeves to go. It's a bombshell. Watch this.
That she should resign or be sacked unless she comes up with a decent explanation for all of this. Or I might have added a proper apology, because, you know, it's getting a bit of a habit for Rachel Reeves. And in terms of her CV, as you say, her LinkedIn posting last week changed from being an economist at HBOS to being in retail banking at HBOS.
Different, very, very different.
Yeah, and that involved, apparently, according to Guido, dealing with customer complaints and a bit of IT. And then she told Stylist magazine that in 2021, she worked at the Bank of England for the best part of a decade. Well, it turns out that was 6 years, not the best part of a decade. And one of those years, she was doing a master's in economics masters at the LSE. So it was only 5 years, really. And then, remember, a year or two ago, she was found to have, frankly, plagiarised parts of her book on women in politics. Big, substantial chunks, paragraphs, were lifted from either Wikipedia or from articles in The Guardian and elsewhere. Now, any one of these things on their own would, you'd say, well, it's a mistake, it's an error, she went a bit far. But the fact she'd gone 3 of them in a row here, really, I think, is going a bit far. And I think this is important.
Let me just be very clear on this. If Rachel Reeves were a Conservative Chancellor, she would be gone by now. Because this story would have been leading the British bashing corporation, Woke ITV, Sly News, and all of the rest for days. The fact that no one has even asked the Prime Minister about this shames our mainstream media. But the pressure is growing. Let me take you through this exchange with Sharon Davies. So someone called Woke Waster wrote to her, with the Chancellor being caught lying on her CV while farmers prepare for a national strike and Starmer being at the centre of a massive scandal over the Southport massacre, it feels like the walls are closing in on this shambolic government. Sharon Davies replied, saying, you have to wonder how many times MSM are prepared to cover up Labour scandals and how bad it has to be. Can you imagine how much the BBC, ITV, Sky, Channel 4 would be reporting it if it was the previous government? I hate how little faith I have in our mainstream media now. Sad times. To be honest, I knew this is what the mainstream media would do. I knew that when they were getting so hysterical, driving Boris Johnson out of office, that it was all party political. I mean, has anyone seen Paul Brand on this story? I don't think so. Because they only go after politicians who they want to boot out of a job. And when it is one of their heroes on the left, they don't give a damn. But finally, the Conservative Party are taking this story seriously. The Shadow Paymaster General, Richard Holden, has now written to Rachel Reeves demanding answers on her career. And there are a whole load of very important questions here. And they're simple questions that Rachel Reeves should be able to easily answer. Between what years were you employed by the Bank of England? What was your job title at the Bank of England? Between what years were you employed by HBOS? What was the reason you left HBOS? Will you now publish a full, unedited CV? So let's talk about this now with my superstar panel, Tess Wheldon and Rebecca Jane. Tess Wheldon, this just gets worse for Rachel Reeves. But what I find astonishing is that no one has asked the Prime Minister or Reeves about this. However, when a journalist yesterday did ask the government spokesperson if Rachel Reeves had broken the ministerial code, they wouldn't answer, because she clearly has. And breaking the ministerial code means if you promised a government of integrity and honesty, which Reeves did multiple times and Starmer did multiple times, she has to go.
Absolutely. And it's not just that. If any of us were found to have lied on our CV in order to get a job, we would be sacked from that job. It's just reasonable. Why is it different for politicians? Why should it be any different for Rachel Reeves? The fact is that Labour think that they're superior. They think because they're the nice party, they can get away with whatever they would like to get away with. And it justifies any personal fault because they're trying to help the people by giving people lots of money and growing the size of the state because they're the state and they're here to help. You look at the last politician that lied in a major way, Boris Johnson. What happened to him? Everyone completely came down on him like a ton of bricks and he was out of office very, very quickly, despite still having great popularity within the country. I see no reason why it should be any different for Rachel Reeves.
Rebecca J?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this woman is in one of the most important jobs in our country and we don't actually know who the heck she is or where the heck she's actually come from. And I think we kind of need to know. And if you've got nothing to hide, why are you not answering this head on? Why are you not, telling us exactly who you are? When obviously I was in law school, the first thing that we got taught was the ministerial code. And, obviously you say, Dan, about the mainstream media and about their agenda and how it's not a surprise that, they're only championing one-sided views. I agree with you, but if there's another thing that I absolutely knew, it's that Labour are liars, and literally from the get-go of when they came in office, they have been lying ever since. This is not new. This is who they are, and unfortunately, the public need to see their true colours and believe it. People voted for Labour, you voted for a mess, you got a mess, and here we are, another example of it.
I know. But the thing is, it's the hypocrisy. It is the absolute rank hypocrisy. And I cannot understand, Tess, that these so-called journalists have been in front of Rachel Reeves, have been in front of Keir Starmer, and have not asked a single question about it.
Well, I think it's very clear that there is a kind of handshake and nod agreement between them that if you don't question them on difficult issues, then you get more access, then you get more interviews and an easier time of it, and therefore you're finding that people don't actually ask them difficult questions. But it also exposes a greater problem in the British media in general, and also just British political life, which is that we bow left and we shoot right. Which means that we're just going to get more and more and more liberal views. Liberal politicians are going to get away with more, and Conservatives are cancelled very, very quickly.
I know. The thing is that the problem... Look, the mainstream media is dead. It is dying. It is corrupted. It is captured. The problem is we used to rely on the mainstream media to apparently keep politicians honest. We can no longer do that. We know from what's happened in the US that the mainstream media are complete stooges. They were describing Donald Trump just a few days ago as a Nazi fascist, something he clearly is not, someone who was going to destroy democracy forever. Now they're cozying up to him at Mar-a-Lago. So we know that the mainstream media cannot be trusted. The problem is that the independent media in this country doesn't get the opportunity, Rebecca Jane, very often to be in front of the Chancellor, to be in front of the Prime Minister, which is why they can get away with such egregious scandals. And I hope people just wake up to the fact that you cannot trust a media that doesn't even ask the question. Because let's be honest, it's not just about Rachel Reeves' fake CV. It's also about what Yvette Cooper and what Keir Starmer knew about Axel Rudakabana and when they were trying to tell the British public that they were all far-right extremists who believed in snake oil populism if they dared question if this guy was an Islamist extremist. Well, now, according to the latest police charges, he is an Islamist extremist. According to revelations from Tommy Robinson in prison, he is attending the mosque at Belmarsh. Again, all I ask of the mainstream media, Rebecca, is to ask the question. The fact they haven't bothered to do that shows, I believe, that they are now a crooked part of the system rather than an external force trying to keep the system honest.
Yeah. It's really depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is why I had to stop reading the news. This is why I had to stop being so involved with it. Because actually, every time I see stuff or don't see stuff, I get even more depressed by it and feel more hopeless. And actually, that's not the answer for any of this. And it's an absolute desperate crying shame that all we want from our politicians is honesty and authenticity. And all we want from our media is honesty and authenticity. And it's the two things that nobody's actually getting. What is the solution? What is the answer? Well, people are waking up and people do realise that actually, so many people are now turning off the news. That's not a coincidence. That is because people are learning. These people are feeding me what they want me to know. So people are getting there. But what do we do about it in the future? I'm not entirely sure. It will take a serious revolt. And unfortunately, and I said this at the last election, I think that the public have to have Labour in power to learn how bad our situations have become. And I'm hoping when it comes around for another election, people are going to waken up a lot more and they're actually going to take control back of this country. I'm going to live in some kind of hope because if
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. The problem that I have, Rebecca, is that we can't afford to wait 5 years, although I would be amazed if this government is able to go that distance. I think one of the solutions, though, is genuine people power. I mean, we've seen this with Elon Musk, who says, come and post your news on my platform. I'm going to allow you that free speech. Sometimes I'll even give you legal support. Sadly, that doesn't extend to other social media networks. So I want to give you an example of this, which comes from a man called Kev Gillett, who claims to be a former colleague of Rachel Reeves. Now, Rachel Reeves hasn't denied his claims. I'm going to put them to you. But as a footnote, by the way, I should say that the suggestion is that Kev Gillett has been booted off LinkedIn as a result of this post, which again shows you that very often you cannot trust big tech platforms to be on the side of the truth. But Kev Gillett wrote, back in 2009, Rachel Reeves worked 3 levels below me, just facts. She was a complaints support manager at LBG HBOS, not an economist, fact check. Nearly got sacked due to an expenses scandal where the 3 senior managers were all signing off each other's expenses, narrow escape. Then had lots of doctors and dentist visits. So she was followed. Turns out she was doing Labour Council business. When shown the facts, she resigned. Now she is robbing people who've worked hard. Now she is ruining every agricultural family. Evil, evil socialists. Socialism is great until you've spent your money. And isn't it fascinating, Tess Wheldon, that post has apparently been censored by LinkedIn, although we've had no denial from Reeves. And the thing is, Reeves made such a big deal when she became Chancellor about the fact that she was the first female Chancellor. We were all meant to celebrate that finally Labour had smashed one of these glass ceilings, even though this is the party that has never had a female leader. But if she's making so much of her personal achievements, isn't it very important that we know if she really was this dodgy worker at HBOS who got sacked for doing political business when she was meant to be working?
Absolutely. I think that it's very important that we actually know where politicians come from and their background, because we have a representative democracy, which means that we have to choose a representative whom we can decide on their experience, that we can trust, that we agree with their views, and we let them go and represent us in Westminster. I think people forget that an awful lot of the time. But I also think that they really benefit from having a mainstream media they're not critical. They don't go and investigate anymore. Investigative journalism seems to be done only on shows like yours. Rather, they are a mouthpiece. They take what is said by Labour spokespeople and they just put it out. For example, Labour's now been saying that actually Rachel Reeves has been straight with the people, not about her CV. They say, oh, she's been straight with the people. That's the headline that people use, about the state of the economy and what is needed to fix it. And I've never heard, and I'm terribly sorry for my language, but I've never heard a larger bit of bullcrap in my life. Because
Yes.
after the budget, the OBR downgraded the growth forecast for the next quarter from 0.5% to 0.1%. And actually gilt yields in the week after the budget rose really sharply because financial markets looked at the level of borrowing and said, well, that's current spending rather than investment. And therefore, the UK is going to be in a worse place economically after Labour. And I absolutely agree. Britain needed to choose a Labour government. They need to know that actually Labour is not some panacea. And we do this every kind of 20 years now. We have a Labour government. They screw everything up even worse than the little mistakes made by the Conservatives. The Conservatives pulled themselves back together again, and then we have a Conservative government sorting out Labour's mess. It's a real shame that no one seems to learn from history.
Yeah, I know. I honestly think that point is so critical, Tess, because if we cannot trust someone to be honest about their CV, how on earth can we trust them to be honest about the economy? And we know she hasn't been honest about the economy. She hasn't been honest about the black hole. It's a bit like the BBC and that disinformation reporter, Mariana Spring, who also faked her own CV, and now she fakes lots of news reporting. It's like the people who claim to be holier than thou usually have the dodgiest backgrounds and are the ones who we cannot trust. But I can trust both of you, and what a fabulous superstar panel today. Such a pleasure for you to have made your debut with us, Tess, on such an important day for your industry. That is Tess Wheldon, the farmer who was amidst the protest today, and of course one of my all-time favourites, Rebecca Jane, the former deputy leader of UKIP, legal expert, and also a top Conservative commentator. Thank you both so much for being here. And I hope you come back soon. But don't go anywhere, because we've got the Uncancelled After Show coming up now on Substack. Angela Levin is going to weigh in on the growing separation between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle as she claims to be joyful during another bizarre red couple appearance while he goes all American during a solo trip to Canada. Guys, Prince Harry has even got a tattoo on television. Can you believe this? Could it get any more embarrassing? It's very important to me that we have a safe space not patrolled by big tech too. That's why the Uncancelled After Show streams and is available on demand daily exclusively via Substack. You can visit it at www.outspoken.live. I'd love you to sign up there. Your support from just £5 a month allows me to keep making this independent daily news show as well. Plus, Substack has lots of amazing features, including an opportunity for you to message me direct. Back tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific for our 100th show. So I'm bringing in two of my favourites, Father Calvin Robinson and Lady Colin Campbell. You don't want to miss this. So hit subscribe right now on YouTube and Rumble. Turn on the notification bell so that you're alerted as soon as we broadcast. I promise to keep fighting for you, but hope to see you on the after show on Substack in just one moment.